everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I was planning on filming a video that was also going to double up as a channel intro, and I was really excited because I ordered a new microphone yesterday so I didn't have to rely on my very average camera microphone. And it arrived in a very shiny box and I ran downstairs as soon as it arrived to pick it up from the mail boxes. And I brought it upstairs and I put it all together really quickly because I heard that it was really easy to put together, and it turns out that I need a teeny tiny adapter that will convert an aux lead to a USB. So I've had to order that, and that won't arrive until tomorrow. So for a video that's going to be my channel introduction, I really wanted as high a quality sound as I could get, so I'm going to have to make that tomorrow, which is kind of bugging up my plans a little bit. But I wanted to see if I could do 2 videos a week when I'm not so busy, i.e. right now. So I had another video idea that I wanted to do, and that was to go through some of my favourite books of last year. I've never been a big reader, but last summer, autumn, I really got into reading, which was weird. It was very sudden and unexpected, but that's what happened. And I read a decent number of books within the last few months of last year. So I wanted to go through some of my favourites, and I think I've got 4 that I wanted to talk to you about. Annoyingly, and it annoys me too, I haven't actually got the physical books with me because I read everything on my Kindle. Some of these I actually did read in physical book form, but they're all at home because I took them all home at Christmas. So either they were in book form and I don't have the book, or I never read them in book form at all. So you're just going to have to imagine that I have the physical book in my hand, but I will try and insert book covers somewhere around. I don't know how this is going to work. So I keep track of all the books that I read on this app called I Read It Now. So get straight to the point, and it was free, I think. Pretty sure it was free. You can download it from the App Store. You can also rate the books you've read, which is great. So you do it sort of by stars. Mine range from lots of 5-star books to 2-star books. I haven't read any 1-star books because why would I bother? And you can also write like little notes about each book, so I tend to write that at the end, just write sort of what I think. So the first book that I really enjoyed reading last year, and this was the book that actually made me think, I can read, I quite enjoy reading, let's give this a go. And that was The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I think I just picked this book up initially because I'd heard about it, I'd heard some really good things, and I had a journey home. I think I had like a 4-hour train journey home or something like that, and thought it looked like the sort of thing I'd be interested in, and I loved it. This was my first book on my app and it was a 5-star rating. I really enjoyed this book. I felt it was quite relatable, and I think that's something that's really important for me to enjoy a storyline. I generally prefer fiction to non-fiction, although I don't exclusively read fiction. I tend to stick to sort of darker, more psychological, crime-related plots, perhaps. That's just generally the sort of thing I'm into. I haven't really read any horror, but that sort of thing is sort of what interests me. I don't really read sort of love stories or whatever. I'm not really into that. But yeah, I thought these characters were really relatable. Actually, the location was somewhere I knew. I read this book in under 48 hours, which I was not expecting. Throughout the book there's a lot of character swapping, so you're reading the story from different people's point of view. I thought that was going to be really irritating, and as soon as I saw that was going on, I was like, ugh, this is going to be really annoying. But it wasn't. It worked really well, and there was a really nice twist at the end. I don't know if any of you have seen the film. I haven't personally. I know a lot of people who have read the book, saw the film and were disappointed, so frankly I don't think I want to watch the film. I've read the book, I really enjoyed the book. I probably would have seen the film had I not read it, but I think I'm just going to leave it like that. So yeah, The Girl on the Train was one of my favourite books from last year. If you haven't seen the film, I would probably recommend you read it. Less so if you have seen the film, just because they don't seem to go together too well, if that makes sense. But yes, that was my first book that I really enjoyed. The second book that I read, and I actually read this in, I think, a day and a half, was I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. If you don't know who she is, you need to Google her because she is absolutely incredible. I probably heard of her since she was shot by the Taliban, so late 2012, this is when that happened. So I've been aware of her name ever since, but she sort of rose to this sort of fame in the last couple of years or so. And considering her age, I mean, you listen to the things she says and the way she talks and the ideas she has and the passion she has, and I mean, she's absolutely incredible, you know. She's just one of those people who, you know, she's wise beyond her years. She's absolutely amazing. So I read her book. I was just intrigued to see what it would be like. Obviously it wasn't a fiction book like some of the other ones that I read, but I really enjoyed it. This one I didn't find relatable really at all because I don't share really any experiences with her. Some of the fundamentals I do, but if I compare my life to, you know, her upbringing and, you know, the places she was brought up in, it's completely different. We've had completely different lives to this point. But this book was incredibly interesting and I feel like I learnt a lot from it. And I would recommend it to anybody. It was just a really inspiring book. I mean, it made me inspired to go out and, you know, do something positive and make a change, but it also made me feel very sort of, not inadequate, but sort of like I could never do what she did, do you know what I mean? So I wrote a fairly long little review on my app after I read this book. I felt really sort of empowered after I read this, so here we go. Malala is so much more than the girl shot by the Taliban, and this book is a reflection of that. Clearly a remarkable girl, wise beyond her years, my favourite aspect of this book is the topic she chooses to focus on. While of course making mention of her near-death experiences in 2012, the story for which she is best known, as well as descriptions of herself and her achievements, of which she is clearly very proud, this occupies only a small proportion of the book. Malala devotes many of her words to detailing her family's history and successes, her love for the beauty of her hometown, and to describing with such genuine kindness the people she admires. I loved reading about the history of Pakistan, as well as her personal accounts of how she and her family were affected by the Taliban earlier in her life, a far different perspective than the ones we are offered by Western news channels. There is so much more I could say as I feel so moved by this book. Malala Yousafzai is an incredible, inspirational young woman. I am #with Malala. I just felt so strongly after this book. I quite enjoyed reading about, she talked a lot about her hometown and sort of moving around Pakistan and things like that, and I know nothing about Pakistan really, and so this is really interesting to sort of hear about it. Like, in my head, my vision of what Pakistan looks like is nothing like what Malala describes in this book. It kind of covers some really important events, certainly within the history of Pakistan, detailing the movements of the Taliban and stuff, but while, you know, they're clearly massive events, she focuses on the things that were big to her at the time. So she, as a child, you know, she was just, you know, wondering when she was going to see her friends next and stuff like that. And it was just so interesting to see all these events written about and described from the perspective that we never get to see. We see it on the news, we read it in newspapers and things like that, but you never get to read an account quite like you do in this book. So I would highly recommend this to anybody. I think it's incredibly interesting. I've been slightly interrupted. My friend has just decided to post on the dog spotting page on Facebook, but she sent me the photos first. It's a tiny little, oh my god, tiny little spaniel, 8 weeks old, called Bailey. Oh, he's heaven on earth. Oh my god, he's heaven on earth. The third book that I really enjoyed reading last year, and I read this within one day because I just couldn't put it down, and it was Orphan X by Greg Hurwitz. This was more of your sort of secret agent story. I don't know if any of you read the Alex Rider series. It was quite big when I was about 10 or 11. I read all of them minus the last two, which I think came out quite a bit later than the rest of them, so I'd sort of moved on. To me, this felt like sort of the grown-up version, and I really enjoyed it. The storyline was really fast-paced and it had lots of twists, and I think that's why I was just so hooked, because, you know, things kept changing all the time, and I felt like every chapter or every other chapter was left on a cliffhanger, and I was just sort of like, well, I can't just put it down now, and I had to keep reading, which I think is the mark of a really good book. So this was the first in a series describing sort of the activities of an agent person called Evan Smoke, and the second book in the series, called The Nowhere Man, is coming out soon. I thought it was January of this year, but I may be wrong because it's nearly the end of January and I have not seen it advertised, but I'm really looking forward to that. If it's anything like the first book, it'll be great. And I also wrote that I would definitely watch it if it was made into a film. I feel like it's exactly the sort of thing I would love to watch. I'm really into action films and things like that. I felt like this was a man's book. This would probably appeal to boys more than girls, but I absolutely loved it. And I cannot wait for the next one. The fourth book I'm going to talk about today is a book called Untouchable by Sybil Hodge, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I actually don't remember downloading this book from the Kindle store, but somehow it was in my Kindle library and it looked like the sort of book I'd be interested in, so I gave it a read, and oh my god, it was so gripping, so interesting. This is the only book, however, out of the four that I'm talking about that I didn't give 5 stars. I gave it 4.5, and the reason for this was there was a little bit in the second half. I think the book was divided up into, I think it was 3 sections, I want to say. Basically, the book is based on some true real life events, and a lot of them include sort of the media and politics and the injustices within them, in terms of sort of people who are high up in the system and can therefore get away with certain crimes because they have the money and the power. Essentially, that's the sort of backbone of the story, and then all the other things are on top of that. So in the second part, it just sounded like the author was having a little bit of a vent, and I got a little bit bored. I would say the first half and sort of the development of the events toward the beginning were better than the end. But I really, really enjoyed it. And the topics in general were quite disturbing. I won't go into them into a huge amount of detail. They are quite graphic, quite disturbing, but in the least weird way possible. I'm sort of into that. I'm quite into sort of graphic films, graphic books, crime, things like that. But there were bits in this book that did sort of make my skin crawl, and I mean, that's not normal for me. I can watch and read most things without sort of being particularly emotionally affected. This is inspired by real UK police investigations, and this book contains scenes which some readers may find disturbing, which is very true. I mean, personally, they had no effect on me because I haven't been through certain things that were described in this book, but for people who have, I can imagine it would be quite triggering, quite upsetting in some cases. So I would heed that warning. I don't know if people are sort of aware of certain things that have come up in the media lately, but sort of offences against children made by adults who are, you know, are in a position of power. That's all I'm really going to say, but that sort of thing, that's the sort of issues that are raised. So that one was my only non-5-star book, but the story itself was really, really interesting. I would have given that a 5-star. So those are my 4 favourite books from last year. I'm going to try and do some more book reviews for videos now that I'm, you know, kind of back into reading. Probably not like a roundup, but more if I read a really good book, once I'm done, I will then quickly get on camera and tell you how amazing it was and obsessively go on and on about how great it was while it's fresh in my mind still, because it's a lot harder to like explain how I felt about a book when I haven't read it in about 6 months. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you maybe came across a book that you'd be interested in reading. I will link all their Amazon pages down below. This wasn't the video I was planning on making today, but I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed making it. I've never done a book review video before. It's the first one of, I hope, many. I'm also really keen on finding new books to read. If you know of any books that are similar in sort of genre and content as the ones I've described below, leave me a comment or send me a message on one of my social media accounts. I'm really open to trying anything. I've got a really, really long wish list on my Kindle account, and I'd be really interested to see what you guys would recommend. So leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel if you fancy, and I shall see you in a few days for another video. Bye!